This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me.
For 4 long years, Donald Trump disgraced America, laughing with mass-murdering dictators, Vladimir Putin's puppet.
You know, the people of Crimea, from what I've heard, would rather be with Russia than where they were.
The world laughed at us.
You know, Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart.
No more.
The people of this nation have spoken. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
Today, America once again leads the free world. A respected leader, steady, determined, who knows America is great because America is good.
We stand with Israel today, tomorrow, as we always have.
Under President Biden, our friends are stronger, our enemies weaker.
This is not about party or politics. This is about the security of the United States of America.
A strong economy at home, a respected America abroad. President Joe Biden, an American president.
We're reading the book on Rollo Tomasi's book, The Rational Male. And then, so what I'll be doing is I'll just sort of go through and read some of what he's written, and then we'll have a discussion. So I've combined 2 groups. I've got the dating and relationship meetups that I just started and took over for one group in New York, and then I created another one here for Los Angeles. And then I'm also part of the nonpartisan Red Pill Men's Group. And that's a group where we discuss dating, sexuality, women, relationships, and politics without all the right-wing crap. So, and so we meet, let me put this in, we meet every month. So welcome to the nonpartisan Red Pill Men's Group. We meet every month, and you can register for that meeting just like you did here. And that's at tinyurl.com/redpillmen. So
I mean, I see your point. I just don't agree with it. I mean, and I think it goes both ways that, you know, what you just described, men can be like that too. But, and maybe it just is about, you know, healing. I mean, both the men and women. It's like there was a time when I would put up with, you know, being, you know, dominated and didn't like it, but didn't know how to get out of it. But then once I did just some work within, and now it's just like it's a no-brainer. It's like, no, I, you know, need equality in every way, and if not, I'm just not interested. And maybe that's kind of the vibe I put out there, which is maybe why I never get dates. I don't know, but it's
maybe it's actually you end up not interested because equality is boring. You know?
I don't think so. I mean, the opposite is so frustrating. And I mean, I came from a family where, you know, just, you know, my mom was, you know, emotionally abusive to my dad. And then like with my sisters, it's like, then my oldest sister, she's kind of abusive to her husband, but then my other sister, not abusive, but just, you know, it's just not equal, I should say. And then my other sister, it's the other way around. Then it's like her husband is, you know, yes, dear, no, dear, whatever you say, dear. And she just doesn't have a voice. Just like my brother-in-law, my other sister, you know, he doesn't have a voice. And it's like, no, I want a voice, and I want an equal voice, not just a, you know, a 49% voice or a 25% voice. It has to be 50. So.
Yeah, well, everybody wants a voice. I think it's sometimes part of what's going on here is yeah, sure, everybody wants to be treated fairly and equally. Now, we have to say that men have always complained about the fact that women like jerks and have gone off with the bad boy. And actually, the guy treats them horribly. But the fact that he treats them horribly actually communicates that he's high value because he doesn't need her. So that's sort of the conflict.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Seen
Yeah.
that.
You know, when we talk about financial into the household, contributing financially to the household, when we talk about paying for dates, when we talk about, you know, man making less than you, being in a relationship with a man who earns less than you or has less than you, then the equality equation sort of is not emphasized. That part of equality is not emphasized. Whereas to me as a man, if I want an equal relationship, that is what I'm going to emphasize in that relationship. And of course, I'm going to treat people fairly. That's my personality. You know, and there's a lot of abuse out there and you have to go to therapy and deal with it. And I've had to deal with it. Yeah, I still have to deal with it. But ultimately, if we want equality, you know, it's not just I want to be treated equal. It's I want to be treated equal too. You know, we both want to be treated equally, not just a one-sided thing, because sometimes we might think that, oh, it's women who've been oppressed and men are the oppressors, which is really a negative view of men. But, you know, and so it's only women that need to rise up to equality. They don't have to treat men equally as equals, and they often don't. Sometimes we're inferior, sometimes we're superior. All depends on what they want from us. But that yeah, so that I think everybody wants to be treated fairly and treated right, until, well, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they want something a little different, and sometimes the people who are too nice, right? People who are too nice, sometimes people don't like that either. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, right. I agree. So being too nice all the time does not work for men, but there are dominant women out there. I mean, and yes, traditionally men were dominant, but even then there were exceptions. And so it's hard. But sometimes men would like reciprocity too, I think is important. And the idea is not that it'd be exactly the same thing, but just some sort of analogous situation, like you do something for her, she does something for you, something like that. And they can be different things, probably are. So, you know, the whole idea of equality sometimes isn't the main point. It's are you both putting effort into the relationship and that kind of thing. And yeah, sometimes one does a lot more than the other, and that gets tiring for men. Probably women in that position too. But
What do you think, Lisa?
Yeah. And I agree that it's not just about, like, you know, women, you know, wanting, or like me wanting equality. And I guess I didn't mention this, but then I also want it the other way too, where the man has equality, where, you know, and I'm still, and maybe it's just because of life experiences that I've been through, like, so often, that it's like, you know, no, I'm just determined to either have that or have nothing. I'm just not buying the whole thing that it's has to end up. But I guess I wouldn't let it end up being anything but equal in every regard, not just the, you know, the you know, in terms of who pays for who, or just all of that. I when I was going through before I was going through my divorce, and read this book. It was Getting the Love That You Want, and it was really good. And, you know, I guess it talked about that among other things, this tendency of like, when, you know, a man or a woman, you know, they'll say they have a bad relationship with someone and they break up, and then they go out and they find someone exactly like their last, you know, significant other, and that doesn't work. And it's just like this pattern, like the same type of person over and over again, and how it kind of, it relates back to your childhood of whether it's your parents or siblings or what have you, of like, but especially like parents, it's like if you didn't get the love that you wanted, whatever that aspect was with, like, say, one of your parents, then when you have your relationships in life, you're going to try to get the love or whatever was missing that you didn't have from, one or both of your parents in a relationship. And then it just keeps happening over and over again until you heal yourself from, from all of that, which then goes on, and there's all sorts of different, and it's really kind of, it's because it's from childhood and it started so young. It's like, sometimes things like, EMDR or hypnosis, things that just kind of really get at or biofeedback, things that just really get at rewiring the brain and and the subconscious is sometimes, for me anyway, has been like the only thing that really, I could do talk therapy until the end of time and it just didn't help. So.
Mm.
Yeah, I remember where I was going to say that, our sexualities were so much not what we think we should be or are. I mean, we talked about last week, or a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the virtuous woman myth. And, the women are not dominatrix. They're not dominant in the bedroom. They're not, generally speaking. I mean, as far as my experience, and I believe that they want the man to be in control in that situation. They want the man to do the work, to do the work in a sense. They want the man to be powerful, to be dominant in that situation. And so, so that is sort of, we want to try, sometimes we want to disconnect our sexualities from the way that we are and act as if that's a sort of totally separate realm in which we get to be things that maybe we don't want to be in real life, but so there's this sense that there is a submissive feminine aspect to women that is both innate and attractive, but also they're not being dominant. They don't want it. They don't want to be dominant in that context. So, so it's kind of like, how can they be dominant outside? There's a sort of sense that there are parts that where women want men to be dominant and in control in their life, and parts where they want equality. So this idea that you have to have absolute equality in all things sort of belies the fact that you actually don't want absolute equality in all things. There's times when you want a man to be in control. There's times when you want a man to be dominant. There's times when you want a man to be strong. There's times when you want a man to be a leader. And many women are looking for those traits in a man already. That's what is attractive to women, that they are leaders, that we are leaders, that we are strong, that we are dominant, that we are powerful, that we're socially high up in the status. And so there's that conflict there that you have to deal with, rather than demanding absolute equality but really not, because there's other parts of your life where you don't want that, other aspects.
Let me just jump in here. I agree, Richard. And I think one of those areas where women like to be dominant is home decorating in a marriage.
Yeah.
Like man, with the family I came from and my marriage, man, oh man, I caught all kinds of pushback when I wanted to be involved with that. And I was paying for, 90 to 99% of it. So it made sense to me. But my wife at the time, I don't think was a fan of that. But it should be fair to both, I believe.
Yeah. Well,
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, maybe as far as like the the dominance thing, um, the way that you'd still have equality is there are certain things that, men might have more dominance in, and then certain things that women do. And but if it's still equal in the end, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, yeah, there might be different areas where, okay, in this area, you're in charge. In this area, I'm in charge. And that doesn't mean though that the other person can't have, that there isn't like input from the other, but then in the end it still kind of averages out.
At this point, we're talking about complementary, which is sort of has been more of a conservative. Women are not and men are not equal, but they complement each other in certain ways. And so, but there is, like you said, in the end, there is an equality, particularly the equality of the soul, the equality of a person, that as persons we're equal, but in our roles, we may sometimes be unequal in certain roles that we play. And so if you get too strict about, it needs to be equal all the time, we won't reflect upon or take into account the times when we don't want it to be equal. And so, yeah, I think men want equal relationships, Lisa. I don't think that the fact that, and that's another thing that women do, is they say, if I can't get this, I'm not having anything, right? That's a tendency for women. If I can't get this kind of guy, I don't want any guy. And so that's a problem in itself, that women tend to have a tendency to retire from the business of relationships, and in part because women treat relationships like a business. And so the idea that if I don't have this equality, I don't want any relationship, is kind of a problem. And if you end up outside with no relationship, right? If you end up saying, I'm going to be asexual, I'm not going to have a relationship, or maybe you're not asexual, you have some type of stuff, but I mean, that's a problematic solution right there. It's like, I'm going to kill myself if I can't get what I want, and but yeah, but I think men want equal relationships. That's what we're striving for, and what we're finding is we don't have it. And part of that is because of sexual marketplace value. Part of that is because women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of relationships. So there's this tug and pull, women trying to get as much as they can and for as little sex as they have to give up sometimes. That's what Orion Taraban says. It's hard to believe that, because I think women actually want sex, but maybe they don't want sex with the guy they're married to or the guy they're with. But in any case, trying to get as much for as little sex as they can give, and men trying to get sex and trying to minimize the loss of the resources that they have to pay in order to get access to sexual intimacy with a woman. So that sort of dynamic is inherent in our relationships, which is a power dynamic and sometimes very manipulative. So yeah, so that's so I don't know, does that make any sense to what you were talking about, Lisa?
I mean, somewhat. I guess, when it's equality, I mean, it's not like maybe the difference is equality versus being henpecked or being verbally abused. And I guess sometimes when it goes, I mean, it's not like it has to be like a very specific 50-50 thing, but it sort of does. So I mean, I guess, and yeah, I guess I'm just not necessarily, I'm I understand what you're saying. I'm not necessarily in agreement of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well,
it sounds like you're okay with a rough equality, different categories. Would that
Oh
be
yeah, like I say, I
true?
mean, if I go fishing, I mean, I used to love to fish, but I never did learn how to take the fish off the hook or cut a fish. So it's like if I had a relationship and a guy was into fishing and he could do that, that would be great. And that's a guy job, But then there might be something that he just can't stand doing. We'll say like cleaning the toilet or something, or mowing the lawn or something, and that's something I love. So I mean, it's just kind of comes down to sometimes just uh, figuring out each individual thing,
yeah,
whatever those things are.
yeah. Well, absolutely, abuse, verbal or physical, is unacceptable at any time. And sometimes it takes recognizing that that's happening, because sometimes it can be sort of subtle, that type of abuse.
Yeah, and it can be very slow and just you don't see it coming. It's just like a little bit at a time, and it's like a mold that grows. It just starts as a little spotted mold, and before you know it, you have this black mold all over your house. It's
So,
so.
and there's one, like, I want to show you, a lot of men want equality. Now, a lot of this conservative stuff and crap that's coming out, about let's return back to traditional relationships, BS. Part of that is women. Women want traditional relationships. Most women want a traditional dating relationship. That's the fact. So what men deal with is that women want equality until they don't want equality, and so women don't want equality. They want inequality, and they want equality until but when the traditional roles and activities benefit them, then they don't want equality. And so it's up to men to sort of stand up and say, oh, wait a minute here, you want equality, but hey, you're making me pay for this. I'm the responsible for all of this, and so I want to encourage you, because we're struggling with equality, and it's not just a one-sided thing. It's not just that men don't want equality and women want equality. It's that both sides want equality, but both sides, in some sense, don't want equality either in certain ways. And so we're all struggling with that. So that's to actually find relationships that are equal and create those relationships. So I wouldn't just dump a guy because something's unequal about it. Because
Oh, right. I mean, there's always kind of, negotiations and working things out and
right.
all of that, of course. So,
And I would look and make sure that I myself actually want equality, and not in a way that says, okay, well, I don't want equality here, but I want equality over there, and therefore I should have both. No. The guys have got to learn to stand up to women, and say, hey, this is unfair to me. And that's, for me, it's me having to pay for everything is unfair to me. It's unfair to me that you expect me to make more than you or have more than you. It's unfair to me, and also to expect me to be the tough one, the stoic one, the silent one, the non-emotional one. And women want to say, oh, we want men who are emotionally available. The reality is that they don't. They want men who are men, and men are not emotional. So these are the stereotypes, and men really can't be themselves in relationships with women, because women want something and they're not, and men have to hide, our actual who we are, so that women can discover us slowly, or else they'll lose interest. So we have to be a certain way. And so there's that thing that we're right now we're in relationships are changing, and the whole dynamic is changing. And we have equality, some level of equality financially. And more women are making more money. Women are getting degrees. Men are not getting the degrees. Women are having buku sex and opportunities for sex. Men are being not having any sex at all. You know, it's a situation that we're in right now. And so I wouldn't jump out and say, I demand an equal relationship, as if the man on the other side doesn't want an equal relationship too, because most of us do. You know?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there may
Right.
be some who think a traditional relationship is better and have more power, and there are abusive people too. But I think we're struggling to find that equal relationship now, and not to give up on trying to find equality in relationships, because it's not as simple as it seems, I think.
Oh, right. I think it's something that might need to be, like if you find someone, you'd have to work on it. And, as long as there seems like there's hope, then, that would be totally fine.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank you for contributing. Not everybody does that.
Yeah,
And,
thank
Yeah, you bet.
Mhm.
You bet.
we're done. Come sign up next week to come. We're going to be talking about power in relationships, reading the next chapter in Rollo Tomasi's book. And I'll see you guys all next week. Thank you for coming today, everyone. All right.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
You were once the party's nominee, and now you're a pariah in the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's saying it in a gentle way. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no question. I don't really have a home in my party. I come from a tradition of, Ronald Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush and George W. Bush and John McCain. Those are the people that have shaped our party. Anti-Putin, anti-Russia, anti-authoritarians, anti-Kim Jong-un. Character counts. The character of our leaders makes a difference, and it shapes the character of our country. That's the party I've come from. And I don't recognize that in the great majority of our party today. And that, for me, is very troubling. Former President Trump said we should set aside the Constitution and reappoint him as president. Why, you had Republicans cheer that. It's like, wait a second. This is the leader of our party saying we should put aside the Constitution. How can you believe you're following the Constitution if that's the case? I don't think I've heard a single member of my caucus, the Republicans in the Senate, say, Donald Trump is great. Aren't we lucky to have him as our leader? Donald Trump represents a failure of character, which is changing, I think, in many respects, the psyche of our nation and the heart of our nation. And that's something which takes a long time, if ever, to repair.